What if the most powerful move you could make, the moment someone tries to knock you off balance, wasn't to fight back at all? Not every person who hurts you has earned your anger. Not every insult needs a reply. And not every difficult person deserves permanent real estate in your mind. Life will keep introducing you to people who misread you, criticize you, manipulate you, provoke you, and sometimes go looking for your emotional buttons on purpose. Some of them will make you feel guilty simply for having limits. They'll disrespect you and then act shocked if you don't smile through it. They'll create chaos and somehow make you feel like the one who owes an apology. Here's the piece of wisdom worth sitting with. You are not obligated to show up for every fight you're invited to. A difficult person only holds power over you for as long as they can control your emotions. If a few words from them can wreck your whole afternoon, they have a foothold in your mind. If they can talk you out of your own confidence, they've moved in. If simply being near you is enough to steal your calm, then the real conflict was never with them. It's with yourself. Confrontation isn't always the smart move. Sometimes the smarter tool is distance. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a boundary stated once, calmly, and repeated exactly the same way every time. And sometimes the smartest move is simply accepting that you were never going to be the one to fix someone else's character. Your job was never to make everyone respect you. Your job is to become so rooted in yourself that disrespect stops being able to set your price. Once you stop reacting to every jab, something shifts in how you see people. Patterns start to show. Behavior starts to make sense. You begin to notice that a lot of hurtful behavior comes from someone else's confusion, insecurity, or plain lack of self-control. And understanding that doesn't mean excusing mistreatment. It means you start responding with awareness instead of pure impulse. Because real strength was never about who can shout the loudest or land the sharpest comeback. Real strength shows up in how peacefully you can walk away from something that used to own you. So this is what we're exploring, the smartest way to handle toxic people. Not by getting colder or crueler, but by getting more conscious, more disciplined, and much harder to manipulate. Because sometimes the real win isn't beating the person who disturbed your peace. It's becoming someone whose peace they simply can't reach anymore. You can't control their behavior, only its power over you. One of the most useful things you'll ever learn is this: you cannot control how other people act. What you can control is how much power their actions are allowed to have over you. Difficult people usually understand this instinctively, even if they'd never say it out loud. They provoke, criticize, manipulate, disrespect, sometimes with full awareness of exactly which words will land hardest. But here's the truth: their greatest weapon was never their words, it's your reaction. The instant you respond without thinking, you've handed them the wheel. But the moment you pause, breathe, observe, and choose your response, everything changes. The power returns to you. Picture it: someone says something cutting. Your first instinct is to fire back immediately. You want to defend yourself. You want them to know they can't talk to you like that. You want to prove you're the stronger one. But ask yourself something simpler. If 5 words from someone else can ruin the next 5 hours of your life, who is actually running the show? That single question can reshape how you deal with difficult people for good. Emotional control doesn't mean going soft, staying quiet out of fear, or letting people walk over you. It means refusing to be a hostage to your own reactions. You can clock disrespect without becoming disrespectful yourself. You can notice manipulation without being consumed by rage. You can protect yourself without losing yourself in the process. There's real strength in the tiny gap between what happens to you and how you respond to it. Inside that gap, you have a choice, every time. React from anger or answer from a clearer place. Speak instantly or wait until the noise in your head settles. Step into the argument or decide it simply isn't worth your energy. Toxic behavior thrives on instant reactions because instant reactions are emotional ones. Angry, you say things you'll regret later. Hurt, you expose weak spots someone can use against you. Desperate to be understood, You burn hours explaining yourself to someone who decided long ago not to listen. You don't have to win every conversation. You don't owe your worth as proof to every person who questions it. You don't need to correct every wrong opinion floating around about you. Sometimes your silence isn't surrender. It's discipline. Train yourself to notice the exact moment your emotions start climbing. Notice your breath changing. Notice the thoughts speeding up. Notice the urge to defend yourself before you've even processed what was said. Then pause. One breath before you answer anything. Ask, will this response actually improve things? Or am I just reacting because I feel cornered? That one question alone can save you from more conflicts than you'd guess. Remember, peace isn't handed to you by other people. It's something you build the muscle to protect. The more disciplined you get with your emotions, the less anyone can manipulate you. People will still criticize you, they'll still misread you, they may still try to provoke a reaction, but they'll no longer get to decide what happens inside you. That's what real strength actually looks like, not controlling other people, but refusing to let other people control you. The quiet power of boundaries. There comes a point where you realize that constantly explaining yourself is flat out exhausting. You explain why something hurt. You explain what you won't accept. You explain your intentions, your feelings, your choices, your limits. And some people just keep doing exactly what they were doing before, completely unmoved. This is where boundaries earn their keep. A boundary isn't an attempt to control someone else. It's a decision about what you will accept, what you won't tolerate, and what you'll actually do the moment someone crosses that line. A lot of people feel guilty setting boundaries because somewhere along the way, they were taught that being good means being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly agreeable. But protecting your peace doesn't make you selfish. Saying no doesn't make you cruel. Putting space between yourself and harmful behavior doesn't make you arrogant. Sometimes respecting yourself means disappointing someone else, and that's allowed. A toxic person may test a boundary more than once. You might say, "Please don't speak to me that way," and get laughed at. You might say, "I'm not discussing this," and watch them keep going anyway. You might ask for space and get accused of being cold or distant in return. This is exactly where consistency matters. A boundary that bends every time someone applies pressure isn't a boundary at all, it's just a suggestion. You don't need to get aggressive to be firm. You can stay calm and still mean every single word. "I'm not comfortable with this conversation. If this keeps being disrespectful, I'm stepping away. I hear that you disagree. My decision stands." No shouting required, no insults needed, no performance of strength necessary. The sturdiest boundaries are often the quietest ones. Once you stop feeling guilty about protecting yourself, a different kind of freedom opens up. You realize you were never responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. If someone gets angry because you said no, their anger doesn't automatically mean you did something wrong. If someone's disappointed that you won't tolerate disrespect anymore, their disappointment isn't proof you should cave. Of course, boundaries shouldn't turn into walls that block every healthy connection. The point was never to push everyone away. It's to build relationships where respect can actually exist. Good people slip up sometimes, and healthy relationships leave room for honest conversation, accountability, and forgiveness. But repeated disrespect, manipulation, humiliation, and emotional pressure are not the same thing as ordinary human imperfection, and they shouldn't be excused as such. You also don't have to announce a boundary like a headline. Sometimes it's as simple as sharing less personal information. Sometimes it's declining to take part in gossip. Sometimes it's ending a conversation the second it turns disrespectful. Sometimes it's just spending less time with someone who consistently leaves you emotionally drained. Your peace has value. Treat it that way. The moment boundaries start feeling like self-respect instead of rejection, your relationships start to shift. You stop begging to be treated better and start deciding what you'll actually allow. You stop explaining your worth and start living like you already know it. And here's the part worth remembering. You don't need anyone's permission to protect your peace. A boundary doesn't require agreement from the other person. It only requires you to be clear enough about where you stand and disciplined enough to stay there. Not every conflict deserves your energy. This might be one of the hardest lessons to actually absorb, because the mind is wired to defend itself. Someone misunderstands you and you want to explain. Someone insults you and you want to answer back. Someone spreads a false story and you want to correct it on the spot. Someone tries to provoke you and there's an almost automatic pull to prove they can't get away with it. But maturity starts the day you realize responding to everything doesn't actually make you stronger. Sometimes it just makes you tired. Toxic behavior often manufactures unnecessary conflict, because conflict is how it gets access to your attention. It provokes an argument just to watch how fast you'll bite. It asks questions built not to understand you, but to trigger you. It twists your words, changes the subject, and turns every single exchange into another round of combat. Keep stepping into every one of those rounds, and you can spend your whole life defending yourself to people who were never actually trying to understand you in the first place. This is where silence becomes a genuine form of discipline. Silence doesn't always mean weakness. Sometimes it means I have nothing left to prove. Sometimes it means I see exactly what's happening here and I'm choosing not to play. Sometimes it simply means my peace is worth more than winning this particular argument. But don't confuse silence with fear. You're not quiet because you can't respond. You're quiet because you have enough self-control to decide whether a response is even necessary. Say someone insults you in front of other people. Your ego wants an immediate answer. Some part of you wants to embarrass them right back. But before doing anything, ask, what actually happens if I respond? Maybe the argument grows. Maybe they escalate. Maybe you spend the rest of the evening replaying it in your head. Now ask the other question, what happens if I just stay calm, state a boundary if it's needed, and walk away? You keep your dignity intact. You keep your energy. And most importantly, you refuse to let someone else's behavior steer your actions. Distance can be even more powerful than silence. You don't have to hate someone to put distance between yourself and them. You don't need to wish them harm. You can simply notice that their presence keeps generating chaos in your life and choose to reduce your exposure to it. Sometimes that means fewer conversations. Sometimes it means not answering every message the second it arrives. Sometimes it means turning down invitations that keep leading somewhere negative. And sometimes, when a situation is genuinely unhealthy, it means stepping away from the relationship altogether. The key is making these calls consciously, not emotionally in the heat of one bad moment. Look for patterns instead. Is this person repeatedly disrespectful? Do they manipulate you again and again? Do you feel drained after almost every interaction? Do they actually respect your boundaries once you've stated them? These questions help separate an ordinary disagreement from a genuinely unhealthy pattern worth stepping away from. You can't control someone else's behavior, but you absolutely can control their access to you. That's a powerful realization on its own. Not everyone has earned unlimited access to your time, your attention, your emotions, your personal life. Your energy is finite. Spend it on people and pursuits that actually help you grow. There's a quiet kind of confidence in walking away from unnecessary drama. You don't need to announce your exit. You don't need to start another argument justifying why you're leaving. Sometimes you just become less available to whatever keeps disturbing your peace. Real strength was never about winning every argument. It's about knowing which battles are beneath your attention and having the discipline to walk past them. Becoming someone difficult to disturb. The real goal here isn't to master a lifetime of tactics for dealing with toxic people. The deeper goal is to become so grounded within yourself that their behavior simply loses the power to define you. You can't control anyone else's character, attitude, words, or choices, but you can absolutely strengthen your own foundation. And the stronger that foundation gets, the weaker manipulation becomes against it. A lot of people burn enormous energy asking, why did they do this to me? They replay the conversation. They analyze every word. They wonder what they could have done differently. Reflection has its place, but living permanently inside someone else's behavior becomes its own kind of prison. You end up giving that person space in your mind long after they've left your life. At some point, you have to bring your attention back home. Ask instead, what can I learn here? What boundary do I actually need? What kind of person do I want to become because of this? Those questions move you from helplessness toward ownership. You may not have chosen the mistreatment, but you get full say over what you build from it. Inner strength was never about becoming emotionless. You'll still feel hurt sometimes. You'll still get disappointed. You might still get angry when someone treats you unfairly. That's human. The difference is you stop letting those emotions become your identity. You feel it, you notice it, and then you decide what action, if any, actually deserves to follow. This is where self-awareness becomes genuinely powerful. When someone criticizes you, don't swallow it whole, but don't dismiss it outright either. Look inward and ask, is there something real here I need to work on? If yes, take the lesson. If not, let the criticism pass through without landing. Wisdom is knowing the difference between useful feedback and emotional manipulation dressed up as concern. The same goes for rejection. A toxic person might try to convince you you're worthless the moment you stop giving them what they want. But someone else's opinion was never the measure of your value. Your worth doesn't rise and fall on someone else's mood. Build a life that doesn't run on constant approval. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Keep learning, handle your responsibilities, practice patience, get comfortable being alone with your own thoughts. The more you trust yourself, the less you'll crave validation from people who were never going to treat you well anyway. And here's one more piece worth carrying. Don't let a toxic person turn you into one. If someone lies to you, that doesn't mean you start lying. If someone manipulates you, that doesn't mean you start manipulating back. If someone disrespects you, that doesn't mean you owe them disrespect in return. Their behavior is theirs to answer for. Your character is yours to protect. That's one of the highest forms of self-mastery there is, staying true to your own values even while someone else is behaving badly. Eventually, you understand that peace was never going to come from making everyone around you behave correctly. Peace comes from building enough strength inside yourself that you stay centered even while the world outside gets chaotic. The question stops being, how do I get them to respect me? And becomes, how do I respect myself enough to choose wisely? That single shift changes everything, because once your confidence comes from within, your boundaries are clear, and your emotions answer to you and no one else. Difficult people can still show up in your life. They just don't get to decide who you become anymore. The closing thought. Before wrapping up, sit with this. Toxic people are rarely the biggest challenge in your life. The real challenge is learning how to stay peaceful while someone is actively trying to take that peace away from you. You can't control every person you meet. You can't control their words, their intentions, their attitude, or their choices. But you can control your response. You can control your boundaries. You can control exactly who gets access to your time, your energy, and your mind. Don't spend your life trying to convince difficult people to finally understand you. Don't wreck your own peace trying to prove your worth to someone who was never going to see it. And don't let their behavior turn you into the very thing that hurt you. Pause before reacting. Set boundaries without the guilt. Walk away when the fight isn't worth it. And above everything, strengthen yourself from the inside out. Because the smartest way to deal with a toxic person was never to defeat them. It's to become so emotionally disciplined that they simply can't reach you anymore. Maybe that's the real definition of strength. Not the power to hurt someone back, but the power to walk away without losing yourself in the process. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember, you have a choice. You can hand them your anger, your attention, your peace. Or you can give yourself the freedom to stay calm instead. Your peace is valuable. Protect it. Your mind is valuable. Train it. Your life is valuable. Choose carefully who gets to influence it. Stay calm. Stay disciplined. Protect your peace. And never forget, the strongest person in the room is usually the one who no longer needs to prove anything at all.